Well, I was listening to 1335. I think the first recording that I attempted to publish and did publish, of course. It's all about jon17, of course. And then, because of the way YouTube's set up, I went on to what was then recommended. And it was very interesting, difference between miracle worker and magician. A saint, if you like, and a magician. They didn't use the word saint, but you know. And I found it very interesting. A bit dead and flat, a bit academic to begin with, but... And now on reflection, what I want to say is that you can very easily be diverted into something that's interesting but not particularly a blessing, more of a fascination that goes down a road that takes you on its own purpose. Well, that's to be a bit too graphic. Leads you off in a direction that's a long way, perhaps, in the end, from what matters to you. What does matter to you? Well, according to your values. We probably have, most of us, rather similar sort of values. At least some of our values are very similar. We don't like pain, we do like pleasure. We're, loosely speaking, seeking happiness and not despair. We want life in some sense, and there's some sort of general agreement on what we mean by life. That it be, well, they again free of pain and full of hope and peace and joy, and perhaps some people would add excitement here. You know, that's what they see as an essential element of life. And perhaps we all do, in that we certainly find some things monotonous and boring, and we think, oh, I would like a change. Shall we do so and so, eat something different, or do something different, or talk about something different even. So what I'm struck by is that, well, very simply, we need to be on our guard against going down a road that's not profitable, not valuable, spiritually speaking, I suppose I want to say. You know, I watched so-and-so for 10 minutes or several hours. Has it made me, well, very loosely speaking, more or less happy? Am I more full of life and joy? Or am I at the end of it slightly bored and what shall I do now, and at a loose end, and have to, in some sense, rein my thoughts back to what I truly value and what would be worthwhile to do now, and how I can recover from being more distant from good state of mind and well-being and happiness. You know, I want to do something that's got more life in it, more of that which I value, and somehow where I am now is not that. So we want to avoid those sort of byroads that leave us in great difficulty coming back, and really we'd have been better employing our time in something that was more pro-life, more pro that which I value. So a talk can be very dry from our point of view. well, in a YouTube surfing sort of way, we just flip out of it into something else. We're looking for something better, and we might go back to the home page and cruise what's suggested by the algorithm, the Google search procedure, the menu that it gives us. And we can find then again that we go from menu hunting to menu hunting. And I'm reminded of Sky Television in the UK when I was there, having been in New Zealand for a few years. And the number of channels was legion, enormous number. That's an emotive word, legion, of course, especially with its religious significance of negativity. But there were many, many channels, and by the time you'd gone through surfing, the 150 or whatever it was, 200, 300 channels, I don't know what it was now. It seemed a great deal at the time. Where you'd spent enough time to come back to the original channels you looked at, because they may have gone on to the next program, which might be more interesting. And in the end, you're just going on and on, up and down the menu, endlessly. None of it appealing, because in the sense, after a while, there was nothing to attach the new possibility to, other than, well, the chaos of just simply going through the list of the memory that you've been doing. There are these traps in life where we get into what we think of as a rut. And it's not going where we would like to go. We start to lose our freedom, don't we? How do we guard against that? Well, we have habits, procedures, and even routines that help to establish us in the way that we want to go. And I think, I mean by this, the way we actually want to go is according to our basic values that we have. Now, I've claimed that many of our basic values are probably of necessity very similar because of our predicament in life of, a physical body, limited time and abilities, and the sort of attributes we have as persons and physical beings. But there are more individualistic characteristics and values that we have too. Some people love classical music, others like popular music or folk or something, And we are happiest when we're involved in a certain value pursuit. That's our values are very close. And we can emphasize this and feel advantaged by emphasizing this by certain sort of habits and rules of behavior that we find we're doing. So we choose, very, very broadly speaking, good company, good literature, good media, good environments, nice things around us, good topics of conversation, and by good I mean here very emotively from our own perspective, which might be extremely religious or extremely secular or extremely artistic or extremely intellectual or extremely scientific. And we would say that this is, we choose then more in accordance with our values at present. Now, do you see that this analysis that I've been involved in now, and we're 10 minutes into a recording, to me it's become dry. It's not giving life and vitality. It's an interesting sort of analysis, so what am I gaining from it? Am I the happier, the more alive, the more engaged in living because of this experience of the last 10 minutes or not? I personally feel that it's a dead end at the minute, except in that if I, in some sense, let me say this for a moment. If I thank God for this situation, for this dead end, perhaps I can escape from it and look at the situation and choose something better. And I have already, in that I'm now here supposed. What happens if I think of this in godly terms? In that case I'm alive again, because seeing things in a godly way, what I take to be godly, of course, is very individualistic and personal in that sense, isn't it? Is a joy to me. That's part of my value system. So suddenly I'm on track. You know, if on the other hand, say you are a great intellectual and you think, this has been very rational and it's leading me to understand how the mind works, then you might get some encouragement into your understanding of what's worthwhile in life from that view. Mine is different. Mine is I'm going to get the joy and feeling of life and vitality by thinking of it in terms of, can God come to the rescue here? I'm a child of God. Is this in fact useful, this 10-minute discourse? 12 minutes now, 13 coming up. Or should I abandon it and simply choose something quite distinct and separate, an alternative choice to think of? And let's look for another video, something a bit more spiritual, I might say, or godly, in my understanding of it. So our practice of making life better is to come back to an evaluation of where I am at any one time. Is this on the track that I wish to be on? Or am I going down a road that to me is dead, not spiritual in my case? Now, some people might be repelled by the spiritual, and so they might even be on a spiritual thing. They think, this is of no interest to me. This is twaddle, this is nonsense. I think I'll go make a cup of tea or eat something, I can, let's find what some of the great philosophers have said in history. And you're flipping through the menu now to find something more to your liking. And I'm saying that's good in a sense. It's allowing you to go your way, and you learn best from what you find is life and worthwhile. And, you may find that what you thought was worthwhile, the more you focus on it, is less and less worthwhile, and you start to long for and look for something different. Or you may, on the other hand, find that what you thought was worthwhile is in fact even more worthwhile than you thought, and you get more and more enthusiastic and encouraged. And I think that's the great opportunity life gives us. If I put it in my spiritual type terms, I'd say it gives you the opportunity to worship your God and see if it holds up. Whatever it is, perhaps you're, a musician and just love music and everything to do with it, and that's where your life is. And having devoted yourself to it for a few years, perhaps you find, perhaps it has its problems. I've not attended to other things that I also enjoy and need to develop. My health's gone, or I need a relationship with someone that loves me or something, not just my relationship to playing the violin, say, or the piano, or writing music, or painting pictures, or studying philosophy, or being a brilliant physicist or mathematician, or, building houses, doing the garden, growing plants. Perhaps there's more to life than growing plants, or playing football. Perhaps there's, or you've been on the religious kick and you think, perhaps there's more to life than just going to church and listening to sermons and Bible study. I'm finding it a bit dry, and it's not. I need life. I think I'll go on holiday, and I think I'll go on a cruise, in fact. Do you see where we're looking for life? And what presents us life and what we value does, of course, depend on how we've been affected by the life we've had to date. Let me pause, see if because this has gone on 17 minutes and this could be quite long enough. Well, this recording has come about because I've looked at the first recording that I did, then the second, which is about 4 years ago now, and then went on to something that was suggested by the menu, which might be of interest as far as the algorithm of the menu is concerned. And it wasn't. It was a dead end. And what we need to be is very aware of dead ends very early on, because we don't want to waste our life, do we? I don't want to spend, 20 years studying something and being occupied in some activity that turns out to be not life eternal. It just has a dead end, and, well, I've been there, done that. Well, what should I do now? Well, I think I'll try so-and-so. I want something that blossoms into better and better. Not that seems to be okay for a while, but then isn't. In other words, I am looking for the eternal life, not the transitory life. To me, increasingly it becomes abhorrent to think of the reincarnation view, of coming back again and again and again 1,000,000 times to life in some sort of world like this. It's almost a frightening, monotonous trap to me. I'm looking for something that opens into, well, quite simply, extravagantly, the eternal, perfect, wonderful, heavenly. And my hope is that such exists. That's what I value. Why have I come to value this? Well, possibly through an experience of trying various sorts of things and none of them really being satisfying. And of course the spiritual argument, well, I'd say of course, but I think the spiritual argument can be that's because really you need God. You need something infinite, open, miraculously lovely and wonderful. That's really what you're eternally looking for. And when you fall in love, my goodness, you feel you're experiencing it. And then after a few years, somehow love vanishes. They think something like 3 or 4 years. And it becomes mundane, and you become discontent. And you long for fullness of life that you experienced when being in love. So you start to get a view of what you're looking for. You're not sure what it is, but it's something like that and not like what it becomes. Eternal life. I'm looking for life, fullness of life. And what do I mean by that? Oh, well, peace, joy, happiness, love, hope, kindness, creativity, wisdom, understanding. The man in the street can tell you what heaven and the perfect would be like in those sort of terms. And you might feel there's some considerable agreement too, that we all want these things, or something very close to it. Well, quite simply, that's what I think these recordings were meant to be about, and are still about. The Jesus thing. I'm come that you might have life, and have it more abundantly. And what he seems to mean is life eternal. And he seems to be talking about it only being possible in some, let me say it slightly negatively, imaginative state. He's praying in John 17 that they be with me where I am, and you think, but he's in the world, isn't he? When he's claiming he's not in the world, he's with God. He's relating to God, talking to God, and it's in his glory. And I want them to see this experience too. That they be with me where I am. You see, they are a peculiar people that had a ring of familiarity. Would you believe it, a religious group that used to call themselves the Peculiars. It was an insult to begin with, of course, by other religious people. There's a peculiar religion, they're the Peculiars. But they took it on as quite an acceptable name for themselves. I don't know if they flourished outside of England, but they did exist apparently. I came across one person that belonged to it. The Peculiars. And they're peculiar in that they had a view that was different to other people. Simply that. That there is a form of living that is more worthwhile than what other people are doing. And perhaps in an astonishing way, we find we are all living according to our imagination, our thoughts, and that we can guide and lead our thoughts, that we are living much happier. And in some sense, in a way that Jesus might be referring to in the story of more abundant life and life eternal, and the religious notions of heaven and so on, and the spiritual notions of dimensions other than the material, that are perhaps more important to us than the material. In other words, you might not love me, or you might love me, but if I'm living according to believing that you do love me, I might be considerably more happy and full of life and joy and peace and happiness than if I'm believing you don't love me. And then, of course, we get the bizarre thing, you mean I could choose to believe you love me even though you don't? And that's better than believing that you don't love me and you don't. No, says the rationalist, the materialist. He says, if I'm realistic, then I'll keep you at a distance because you don't love me and you're going to be making life extremely unpleasant for me. And I'm going along sweetly thinking that you're enjoying my company and in fact you're trying to poison me. Where do we find in this an acceptable path? Well, my understanding so far is that whatsoever's good and lovely, we should think on these things. And we should choose environments, company, media environment, and physical environments that are conducive to our happiness and joy and peace. So we would avoid people that we sort of suspicious that the concerned don't love us and might be trying to kill us, in fact. That would be very wise. Don't go knocking on all the doors saying, have you had Jesus come into your life yet? Because some people will hate the notion of religion and want to kill you. You get crucified, and really the Jesus story shows that, doesn't it? Don't push your face into other people's lives that don't want to know. And indeed, the way Jesus starts a story, it's those who have ears to hear. And he may go off and, to the beach by the lake or off into the wilderness. And if you're going to hear the full discourse, you've got to go out of your way to hear it. In other words, it's not just pearls before swine at all. It's saved for those who are genuinely interested. The Buddhist way of accepting a new follower, you might turn up at the monastery door and it's locked. They don't let you in. And they leave you outside for a few days to see how serious are you that you want to come in. Well, he's still there and he's not eating, poor chap. Well, bring him in. Let's see what he's like. Do you see? It's a different approach, isn't it, to the door-knocking evangelist that's ramming it down your throat. Look, this recording's gone on far too long, but to say that my reflection on where I started, what was my goal? It's something that's in this recording, isn't it? Bless you. Thank you, Heavenly Dad. I've left you with a cliffhanger here, and you're probably thinking, oh, what was it in the recording? In other words, has it stirred something? Is it worth listening to again? Some things are and some things aren't. I found some courses at uni in my subject, which was economics, I could go to and listen to again, do the course again, whole course. And it hadn't changed. It was almost like listening to a repeat of the recording. And I got far more from it. And, well, that was a lesson in itself worth learning. Some things, some books. I had Autobiography of a Yogi by Paramahansa Yogananda. It doesn't inspire me at present in the way that it did. A little, but not as much. I mean, I was almost obsessed with it at some points, large areas of time in my life. And I could read it again and again, a bit like I read still, to some extent, jon17, the prayer of Jesus for his followers. And I got it more and more and more from it. So if you don't follow something, but it does stir you a little, you're not quite sure what he's on about, but that was interesting, and I agreed with that, of course, and that I found to be true. Listen to it again. And, I missed that. Yes, I agree with that too, and I see what he means by, now I understand what he means. But perhaps there's more. Now, it was the test of true scripture that this is the case. You can read it again and again and again and again, and it still gives you inspiration. And that's ultimately what I want to say here. Taken 30 minutes to get there. Is what you're doing inspiring from your point of view? Or is there a path that you have found to be in the past better? Go back to that then. Go back to where your inspiration is. Don't keep on the by-road you're on. Jump back onto your main highway, so to speak. Do a psychological leap across the divide. Choose you this day whom you will serve, not get trapped in these ruts. Follow your inspiration, where you find your inspiration, what you see as good company, good media, good environments, good things to do. That which matches your values. You need to devote yourself, you see, to your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. That's what I understand to be the real message of the Jesus story, not the terrible religions we've seen unfold through history that have sprung from it, supposedly, and perhaps not from it at all. Well, I hope that in some way, and I see it, that my recordings do achieve something of this. But not for everyone, I realise that. Those who have ears to hear, let them hear. Thank you, Heavenly Dad.